This is Linda Cohn from ESPN, and you're listening to the ML Sports Platter.
The ML Sports Platter is back with you all over the major platforms like Spotify, Google, Apple, Stitcher, and Deezer. Leave a 5-star review and some feedback as well. A big thanks to Welch & Company Jewelers, the Allen Angus Pub, your State Farm insurance agent, Matt Graham, and our great friends over at Prestwick Golf. If you're a golfer and you need those clubs re-gripped year in, year out, Ed and his team, they do an awesome job. And you can also get some new and used clubs over at Prestwick Golf as well. Court Street in Syracuse, if you're in and around central New York, get on over to Prestwick Golf. Also want to mention the huge support from the Swan and Whitaker families throughout the year of 2021 here on the program. And also a big-time thanks to our good pals over at the Vince Aguirre Consulting Group. Become a better leader both personally and professionally at the Vince Aguirre Consulting Group. Log on today to vcgtransforms.com. That's vcgtransforms.com. Well, it is Travers Week. The entries are not yet known, but we do have an idea of some of the folks who will be the jockeys and some of the folks from a horse standpoint, right, that'll be racing as the premier 3-year-olds in the country. Let's talk with the turf writer, horse racing insider for the Buffalo News. It's Gene Kershner. He's on Twitter at Equispace, a must-follow, and is a terrific horse racing handicapper and insider, you name it. And oh, by the way, he is the director of the Buffalo Sports Hall as well. So make sure you go check out what they do at Buff Sports Hall on Twitter. Gene, how are you, buddy? Big week.
Thanks, Mike. Great to be here.
Yeah, let's get into this thing. I mean, obviously, as we record this, we don't know the full entry list into the Travers, but I mean, we can assume that Essential Quality will be in there, right? And we can assume that some others will be in this thing. Or is a Rombauer going to be in it? You know, how do you see the field right now? What would be your crystal ball?
Well, NYRA did release probables last week, last Thursday. So right now there looks to be 7 potential starters. You're right, Essential Quality is one of them, the Jim Dandy winner.
Yep.
Keep Me in Mind, who came in second in the Jim Dandy. And then a couple of horses that came out of the Curlin, Dynamic One, who's a Pletcher trainee, that won the Curlin, and the second place horse there for Chad Brown, Miles D, will be running. And then a horse that fared fairly well in the Derby Midnight Bourbon, who finished 6th, clipped heels in the Haskell and lost his rider, Louis Saez, in that race. So he is probably one of the bigger threats coming into Essential Quality. And then King Fury, who tried the grass in the Saratoga Derby, is back to dirt for Kenny McPeak. And then Masquerade is the 7th. Rombauer has not been listed as one of the 7 at this point, and I don't expect to see him. But a seven horse field. I mean, some pretty quality horses in there. Obviously, it's Essential Quality's race. He's the horse to beat. Obviously, the Belmont Stakes winner, and finished very strongly in the Derby, 4th, with probably one of the longer trips. Outside wide trip the whole way around in the Derby. So, looking forward to a good race on Saturday in the 152nd Travers.
No doubt, as am I. Bourbonic is an interesting one because, I mean, this horse was nominated for the Travers, right? And that's obviously a Pletcher horse as well. He won the Wood Memorial way back in April, which seems like ages ago. But he's probably not going to be in this field.
No, Bourbonic is going to point towards the Pennsylvania Derby.
Oh, okay, that's what's next.
Which is next month, and $1 million race down at Parks. So Pletcher is going to pass on this race with him and go all in on Dynamic One.
Okay, Bourbonic, not Bourbonic, because you don't pronounce it like the drink, apparently. Right? Is that the secret sauce? I've heard it both ways. So
I think you're right. So the bourbon horse in this race is Midnight Bourbon.
I'll tell you what, I have been so impressed, and I don't know what the exact rankings are now. I think I heard my man Kevin Rich on radio yesterday say something to the tune that Luis Saez is maybe the leading jockey in Saratoga right now. I don't know if that's correct.
Yeah.
But he and the two guys Gene, I wanted to bring up were Saez and Joel Rosario. They look really, really good right now.
Oh, for sure. So through yesterday, Saez has 49 wins, and he's absolutely dominating the jockey standings. Jose Ortiz is in second, 10 back. His brother Irad is 13 back, and Irad skipped yesterday to ride up in Toronto in the Queen's Plate where he won aboard Safe Conduct. But yeah, Rosario's he's at 20. He's in fifth place at 27, but he's been on the turf riding very well. You always got to pay attention when he's in a race because he's an excellent jockey. He knows how to, he's got a good timer in his head from a jockey perspective and knows right when to move his horses.
Have you been out a lot to Saratoga this year, Gene?
No, I was there for Jim Dandy weekend, so I was there for 3 or 4 days, and heading back on Friday for the weekend. It's New York State Travers Stakes Day on Friday, so mostly New York bred horses will be running all day in a number of non-graded stakes races there. I think they've got maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 races. Non-graded stakes on Friday, and then on Saturday there's a slew of graded races, 6 grade ones,
wow.
which is great, including the Allen Jerkins, which we'll probably see Jackie's Warrior in that race, as well as Life is Good, who was part of the effort barn early on, didn't make the Derby, and now was transferred over to Todd Fletcher. So doesn't look like there's going to be a real big field in the Allen Jerkins, but man, it's got some decent horses in it for sure.
Talking some horse racing with my man Gene Kershner on Twitter at Equispace, and of course the turf writer and horse racing insider for the Buffalo News. The 3-year-old of the year, can we? I mean, is it going to come down to Travers only here? Do you think as the swing race, Gene?
Well, I think essential qualities. Pretty much, if he wins this race, he's going to have it locked up.
Yeah.
Even if he doesn't win the race and fares well in the Breeders' Cup, I think he's probably got it pretty well locked down at this point. He's just such a good horse, and the other horses have kind of fell off. Unless not Rod Charlie does something, like win the Classic, and if he runs in the Awesome again as his prep for the Classic, that's the only other horse I can see that might challenge him at this point. Midnight Bourbon hasn't won since the Lecomte at the fairgrounds early on the Derby Trail. So I think Essential Quality can probably put a lock on it this weekend if he wins the Travers for sure.
What's it been like this year for you covering the sport and having it back to what we knew, before Corona? What's it been like?
It's been refreshing just to get back, to it. And I was probably one of the only turf riders who made all 3 of the Triple Crown races last year because it was very difficult to, number one, get the invite and then have to make sure you had a test 72 hours at all the places. But being located in New York State, that helped me out, so I was able to get to both the Belmont and the Travers last year. But it was just so weird. Watching a race with no fans, and just you can hear the sounds of the horses, beating and going forward and thumping on the ground, and just listening to the jockeys, as they cross the wire, amid screams of joy. it's just a different experience. But man, it's been great to get back to it. I mean, I think for me, it was the first sense of getting back to normal at the Derby when they had about 50,000 there, and it seemed like things were back with being at a sporting event with fans and whatnot. The Preakness and the Belmont limited fans to 10,000, so it didn't have the same feel as the Derby. But just being back to Saratoga with 36,000 there on Jim Dandy weekend, it was great, and I'm expecting there'll be a pretty decent crowd in the mid 40s to upper 40s on Saturday.
Okay. This past Saturday, the Alabama, I thought it was an awesome race. Obviously, every day at Saratoga, you get a million different races that are amazing and storylines galore. The 2-year-olds prepping for next year and the 3-year-old circuit. I mean, the whole thing is just amazing. But the Alabama continues to impress. What a great day it was this past weekend. And how about this horse Mallet Hat, man? I mean, Pletcher and Velasquez strike again, number one. Number two, this horse now has wins in the Kentucky Oaks, in the Alabama, in the Ashland. Those are all G1s. Won the Coaching Club American Oaks. I'm telling you, this is one of the truly terrific 3-year-old fillies here we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, the Shedwell filly out of sired by Curlin out of AP Indy Mary. Obviously has the stamina, and there's not many races that the girls run a mile and a quarter. This is one of them.
Sure.
Next weekend, this weekend, we'll see the personal ensign for the older fillies and mares. But she definitely had the stamina to get the mile and a quarter, and she avenged her loss in the Oaks, Coaching Club Oaks and Maracuja, and just didn't really got bottled up a little bit on the inside and didn't have a chance. But man, Malathaat really showed her stuff. Taking on that field on the backside. I thought Army Wife was really going to come on. The Iowa Oaks winner was right there at the end, but Malathaat just kind of breezed by her, at the 16th pole, and it was over from at that point forward. So it'll be interesting to see. The distaff, the Breeders' Cup distaff is run at a mile and an eighth, and there's some really good horses in that division. Latruska and She Dares the Devil. To put that 3-year-old filly up against them will be very interesting at Del Mar in November for sure.
Okay, before I let you go, I want to get into a little Bills with you because we're sneaking up on the season. You're in the Buffalo area. How crazy is it right now, the mania and the anticipation for this season for the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, we're at the DEFCON 4 already, pretty much. The fans are really into it, and I have a hard time. We're at peak Saratoga season, so I don't get too excited. But man, the opening game against the Steelers should be quite a sight, and they look sharp. I mean, knowing now that we've got a guy that can back up if something happens to Josh, we got Trubisky right there, who did some good things this weekend and showed that he's still got his stuff. And he's a young quarterback too. Drafted number 2, and things just didn't work out in Chicago, but he seems to have found a home here with us, and it seems like our running game is going to be improved. Both those guys, Moss and Singletary, really went to work this summer to bolster their games and their conditioning. And I think they're ready to go, and I think Bean did a great job in the draft. Shoring up the defensive line. Some of the edge guys that he got looks like that. Russo looks like he's going to be a monster. So yeah, pretty excited here. It should be an interesting season. We've got a tough schedule, but what more to say but go Bills?
Yeah, no doubt. Do you think that they can handle the pressure and the hype part, Gene? I mean, that's the one thing. I think last year as they won and the target started to get bigger and all that, they were handling games over and over again. I seem to think that won't get in the way. I think that just the competition on the field, will be the end-all, be-all, whether they win because they're better or they lose because they're not, right? But, there's a lot of things in between there that get in the way in sports many times, as you know, and pressure and hype are both in that group. Can they handle that, do you think?
I think so. I think the coaching staff there does a really good job of keeping them focused on one game at a time, and not looking down the road and just focusing on getting that win and that victory Monday, and doing it game by game as opposed to trying to do too much. If they get beat early in the season, it won't be a bad thing either. Because if they do start getting big heads and start reading the clippings a little too much, a loss can always put them back into perspective and get them back to work. But I think this group is pretty. I think there's enough veterans on the team that will be able to corral some of that enthusiasm and keep them focused on what they need to do. I think they've got a good group of captains that are pretty, even keeled, and some of them who've been around, so they know, the other side of the coin.
You know what? Before I let you run, why don't you give a quick plug for the Buffalo Sports Hall?
Yeah, we're putting in 8 inductees on October 13th in Buffalo, and it's a good group of athletes. We didn't have our dinner last year, so we're really hoping that we can have a nice event that night. Hopefully things, hopefully Delta stays, out of the way for us, and we can, somewhat get back to normal. We hold it at the Buffalo Niagara Convention Center. John Beeline is probably one of our headliners going in this year.
Nice.
It's a coach from Niagara County who, at one time coached here at Canisius College, and went on to big things.
He was at. By the way, he was at Richmond when I was at St. Bonnie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was in the A-10 the same time you were going to school there. That's great. Yeah, Mike Robitaille, who I'm sure you've heard of, former Buffalo Sabre great. John Butler, who was going in posthumously, so former GM of the Bills. So it's a great group. We've got a father and daughter team going in from Williamsville South. Julie Gentner Murphy, multi-sport star, Division III All-American in field hockey, and was a tremendous championship softball coach at Lily South.
Wow. And
her late father is also going in, who was a 3-time state champ as championship softball coach there at Williamsville South. So a sprinter that sprinted at Alabama, Lamar Smith, just out of Bennett High School, holds 2 of the oldest boys track records in Western New York, 100-yard dash is one of them. So, and then we highlight a team every year. The 1958 UB football team is going to be kind of honored. They're not being inducted; they're being honored. That team won 8-1, won the Lambert Cup, but they're probably the most interesting thing about them is they declined an invitation to the Tangerine Bowl when the bowl committee denied 2 black members from competing in the game. So the team stood up and said, "Forget it, we're not going to the game." So it's kind of we're giving that team their due and to honor them the night of the induction.
That's an awesome class. Gene Kershner, the outstanding horse racing insider, turf writer at Equispace on Twitter. Go get him, go follow him, and of course the director of the Buffalo Sports Hall of Fame as well. Gene, this was incredible. Really appreciate it, man. Let's stay in touch here and enjoy this weekend, okay?
All right, sounds good, Mike. Take care.
Gene just does an amazing job covering the sport of horse racing. I'm Mike Lindsley. This is the ML Sports Platter all over the major platforms. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Mike L Sports, by the way, and we are brought to you by our great friends at Rosie's Corner. If you're in and around Central New York, stop on over to Rosie's Corner. Pizza, wings, pasta, hot and cold subs, and more. They've got it all. Mac and cheese on Thursdays and Fridays. And, of course, Fish Friday every Friday as well. Rosie's Corner, a proud ML Sports Platter sponsor. Tip of the cap thank you as well to Axe Exotic Pets, Brian Comboy of Mass Mutual, New York State, and Ken's Auto Detailing, Route 11 in Cicero. You got to get over there for a full detail, A to Z, inside, outside, the wax and the wash. And hey, if you want that chrome on your car as well to just make it last that much longer, get on over to our friends at Ken's Auto Detailing. Ken and his staff just do an awesome job. He'll do motorcycles, he'll do cars, he'll do trucks, he'll do everything that you ask him to do, and he'll do it at an A-plus level. And I've said it a million times, you drive off the lot and you basically feel like you have a brand new car. Ken's Auto Detailing, the official detail house of the ML Sports Platter, Route 11 in Cicero. So I wanted to spend the last 8 or 10 minutes of the podcast talking about Miguel Cabrera and just the absolute greatness of Miguel Cabrera. He just hit his 500th home run yesterday as I record this. And when you think about right-handed hitters in the history of the game, you think about hitters, period, in the game, he's right there with anybody as far as I'm concerned. you look at the fact that he's won 2 MVPs. He's got, 4 batting titles. He's got 2 Major League Player of the Year awards. He's got a Triple Crown. Won the pennant with the Marlins as a 20-year-old in 2003. Remember when he was all those big hits, the homer, I believe, off Kerry Wood in the NLCS, and then he homered off Roger Clemens in the World Series. Silver Slugger, he's won 7 times. The guy has just put together just a sparkling career, and he will be in the Hall of Fame one day. He will be a shoo-in as a first ballot Hall of Famer. And when you look at the collective numbers, they're staggering. I mean, his batting average career is .311. He's only 45 hits away from 3,000. I mean, we've got 40 games left ish this year. I don't know if he can get it this year, but man, next year is his 20th year. I mean, all he really has to do is come back and DH, and he can do that with any American League team. We're dealing with a guy who's nearing 600 doubles. He's got 591 of those. I mentioned the 500 home runs. The 1,785 RBI is just a remarkable number as well. I mean, when you start looking at the list, and you start seeing the names, and you start rambling them off, how many people are really ahead of Miguel Cabrera in terms of RBI? Well, there's only 21. When you start getting into the 20s and the 10s and the 5s on short lists, that's pretty impressive. I mean, there's only 21 players who are ahead of Miguel Cabrera on the RBI list. And frankly, look, 500 home runs used to be a sacred. It's not as sacred now because the steroid era and all that sort of thing. But, the reality of the situation is that it's still pretty hallowed, right? I mean, there's still under 30 players with 500 home runs. It's not like we're at 80. And I think I'm still a firm believer that I believe Manny Ramirez and Palmeiro, Sosa, McGuire. I think they all would have gotten there without the steroids, but they certainly didn't need to take them. A-Rod, but Miguel Cabrera. Here are the 21 names ahead of him. I mean, it's unbelievable. Hank Aaron, Babe Ruth, Albert Pujols, Alex Rodriguez, Cap Anson, Barry Bonds, Lou Gehrig, Stan Musial, Ty Cobb, Jimmy Fox, Eddie Murray, Willie Mays, Mel Ott, Carl Yastrzemski, Ted Williams, Ken Griffey Jr., Rafael Palmeiro, Dave Winfield, Manny Ramirez, Al Simmons, and Frank Robinson. That's it. Those 21 guys, man. And when you look at the guys he's ahead of, I mean, he's ahead of Reggie Jackson, Honus Wagner. He's ahead of Cal Ripken Jr., Jim Thome, Mike Schmidt, George Brett, Rogers Hornsby, Harmon Killebrew, Al Kaline, Joe DiMaggio. I mean, it's pretty impressive stuff. And so I think he probably will play in, 30-plus-ish games the rest of the way. I mean, I hope he can get the 3,000 hits this year, because he, certainly would have, I think, the opportunity at that particular point, even though, I mean, he hasn't had a horrible season this year by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, when you look at his numbers this year, he's actually put together, for a terrible ball club in the Tigers, he's put together at least a respectable career, not career year, but a respectable year. 246, 13 home runs, and 89 hits. I mean, we still have 35, 40 games left to play. He's played in 99 of them. So, with X amount of games left, DH or first base, whatever the case may be, Miguel Cabrera, probably will play in that 30-game range from now to the end of the year. I mean, he can find some magic in the bat. If he gets 3,000 hits this year, he may just elect to retire, right? I mean, why not? I mean, it's a heck of a way to go out. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's, 38-ish, 39 years old, and he's played 19 years in the big leagues, 2 MVPs, played in a World Series. He's hit over 330 1, 2, 3, 4 times in his career, 5 times in his career. I mean, it's unbelievable. His career OBP, by the way, is historical. It's 388, and his slugging is 534, and his OPS is 922. So those are career numbers. he hasn't won a World Series. You wonder if he tries to DH with a contender next year if he doesn't reach 3,000 hits. He might reach 3,000 and not make the, he may reach 3,000 and make a decision. He doesn't want to leave the game, and he could come back. But I think, and it's not my career, clearly, but I would think with him that if he gets 3,000 hits this year, wouldn't that be a pretty darn cool way to go out? I mean, he may try to go chase a championship. But again, if you go to the National League, you got to play the field a lot more. Albert Pujols has gone to the Dodgers, but that was a way different situation. He was released by the Angels, and the Dodgers basically just picked him up, and nobody else wanted him. And it's worked out incredibly well. It's just added a little bit more depth. On occasion, they put him at first base. They'll DH him against American League teams if they're playing in that park. They'll pinch hit him on occasion, and he just looks better and fresher than he did, before the release. Totally different circumstances with Pujols than with Cabrera, because Cabrera, he'll be finishing up. I'm trying to remember what the contract stipulates here. I'm scrolling down on the Baseball Reference. He's set to make. Oh, actually, you know what? I stand correct. Well, he can still retire after this year for sure, but he is on contract, under contract with the Tigers for 2 more seasons at $32 million a year. So that's just absurd money. That contract, it did get to a point where it was a little much. They prorated a lot of it, right? They front loaded. I remember back in 2008. He was making over 11 million, then over 14, and then it was 20 million, 20 million, 21, 21, 22, 22, 28, 20, and then it just got crazy. 28, 28, 30, 30, 30, 30 the last 4 years. And then he's set to make 32 million in 2022 and then 32 in 2023. So, again, these are guaranteed contracts. He has a $30 million vesting option for 2024, and the same applies for 2025. If Cabrera finishes in the top 10 of MVP voting in those years, he's an earliest free agent in 2024. So that's the contract situation for Miggy. So yeah, you know what? 3,000 hits right now or not, it doesn't matter. He probably will play. Because you can't leave that kind of money on the table. Anthony Castrovince of MLB.com and MLB Network, by the way, had just a remarkable piece that he was the voiceover for on Cabrera, his history in the game, his impact in the game, just historical implications of this guy. I mean, what he's done all time as a right-handed hitter, as an MVP guy. Obviously a Hispanic player from Venezuela who's, clearly made such an impact both here and, of course, in his homeland. If you get a chance, go check out Anthony Castrovince's piece on MLB.com, the MLB Network correspondent. He's been a past guest of this program for a long time and going back to my radio days as well. But Anthony did a great piece for MLB Network and MLB.com, so go check that out at MLB.com on Miggy Cabrera, kind of the link to history, comparing him to right-handed hitters of days gone by with the likes of Rogers Hornsby and Aaron and Mays, and it's just a really, really, really awesome tribute to Miguel Cabrera and his 500th home run this past weekend. I'm Mike Lindsley. Thanks for listening in to the ML Sports Platter. Make sure that you do download, subscribe, and leave feedback and a 5-star review everywhere where you get podcasts on your smartphone device. We're brought to you by Liverpool Physical Therapy, Sit Means Sit Syracuse, our good friends over at Camilla's Golf Club, and Stanley Law Offices. Together, they'll work to get you the maximum award. Stanley Law Office is a proud ML Sports Platter title sponsor. And again, you can visit them online at StanleyLawOffices.com, StanleyLawOffices.com. Personal injury lawyers, you never know what's around the corner. Stanley Law Offices is here to help. 800-608-3333. It's always personal with Stanley Law. 800-608-3333. StanleyLawOffices.com. Thanks for listening. As I always tell you, enjoy the games.